Hello everybody, this is Lara with your daily analysis for Bitcoin, Ethereum and XRP. I'll give you this analysis 5 days a week, but when New York is closed, the markets are generally pretty quiet, and I don't take holidays, but I will take those New York closed days off. So Monday's Martin Luther King Day. Unless something big happens in crypto, I'll be resuming your analysis on Tuesday. So I'm going to have a 3-day weekend and get a bit of sleep. Bitcoin moved lower for the last 24 hours and there's some push from volume. So I'm not going to label this a bearish engulfing pattern because it's not occurring at the high. At the high though, for the 11th of January, we do have a bearish upper wick. So we are finding some resistance as I expected, about 48,000. Support at 41,100 I do expect to hold. I don't expect lows below that point is very likely, but if price did close below 41,100, I would expect support at 38,500 to not be breached. Next time price gets up to this resistance, about 48,000, it's most likely going to close above that point and some energy may be released to the upside. We might see a further increase in volume. Upward volume is really, really strong. And it's pretty obvious there's still a series of higher lows and higher highs, the basic definition of an upward trend. That big bearish candlestick has a further increase in volume. We've seen that happen before. Back here on the 11th of December, we saw a big strong bearish candlestick pattern, still found support at 41,100, and that too had a strong push from volume. It was only followed by pretty much sideways movement before the upward trend has started to slowly resume. So just because there's a further increase in volume for the 11th of January doesn't mean that downward movement has to continue. On balance, volume gives a really weak bearish signal. ADX is declining, the DX lines are whipsawing, there's no clear trend. A couple of days ago, ADX indicated an upward trend in an early stage, but now it's declining, so again, no clear trend. If we do see a bit of sideways movement here, then ADX might manage to get below 15 and it might start to set itself up for a really strong signal. I'll be watching that one closely next week. There is now quadruple bearish divergence between price and RSI after RSI reached fairly decently overbought. I'm going to give more support though to volume. Volume is strongly pushing price higher and there is obviously an upward trend intact, even though it's been interrupted by little consolidations and pullbacks, which is normal. And so even though there's the strong bearish divergence, we could just see price move sideways a little bit before resuming the upward trend. This doesn't necessarily mean we have to have a big trend change. And there's quadruple bearish divergence between price and money flow now. But along with an increase in volume, as price is moving higher, we're getting a strong increase in range. This has a really strong look of a bullish run for Bitcoin. So even with that divergence, because that can occur really early on in a bullish run and RSI can get really extremely overbought for quite a long time early in a bullish run for Bitcoin, I'm going to give more weight to volume and range at this time. There's a push from volume and an increase in range and volatility as price is moving higher. My Elliott Wave count for Ethereum is remaining the same. I am expecting a third wave up at minute, minor, intermediate, primary and cycle degree is in its early stages. So that's 5 degrees. For now, within the start of minute wave 3, I'm going to label sub-minuet 1 of minuet wave 1 incomplete, but I might move the degree of labeling here up 1 degree next week. I've drawn a base channel around this upward movement from the start of minute 1 off to the left of the chart. I'll show you where that is. It's the low of the 12th of October. So from that low to this low here of the 3rd of January with a parallel copy on the end of minute wave 1, the upper edge of the base channel has provided resistance for the 12th of January and initiated a sharp little pullback downward movement in that on that session. This base channel, the middle of the third wave, minute wave 3, should have the power to break above the base channel, but before it does that, it's pretty normal for price to find resistance there. If price can close above this trend line, look out for a back test of support before moving up and away. But for now, I'm going to label this pullback for the 12th of January a fourth wave correction, which may not move into first wave price territory below 2296.81, and I'll expect a fifth wave up to move beyond the end of 3, so above 2717.2, maybe to find resistance again for another test of resistance at the upper edge of this channel before a deeper pullback for sub-minuet wave 2, or if I move it up 1 degree, minuet wave 2, either of which may not move beyond the start of the first wave below 2092.33. The daily time frame for Ethereum from the weekly chart, I have a target from a triangle 3347, and I've identified resistance next above at 3580. At this high here, there's a shooting star candlestick. This is a bearish reversal pattern for the 11th of January. It's followed by, now I should label this, a bearish engulfing candlestick pattern for the 12th of January. There we are. So we've got two bearish reversal patterns at these highs. Look out for a backtest of support about 2,400 is possible in the next couple of days. The bearish engulfing candlestick pattern has a slight push from volume, but it's not as strong as volume was for the 10th of January. 2,100 should be very, very strong support. It was tested multiple times as resistance here. Price is broken through. Normal to see a backtest of support before price moves up and away. The bearish engulfing candlestick pattern has a little bit of support from volume compared to the previous session, but strongest volume recently was a strong upward session for the 10th of January. So this volume here for Ethereum is the strongest we've seen for many months. This is very, very bullish. ADX has slightly still got a positive slope. The positive line, DX line, is still above the negative DX line. So ADX for Ethereum still tells us there's an upward trend in a very, very early stage. This is extremely bullish. Ethereum's only got that one downward session. So if we see another downward session for Saturday, or a little sideways session to not make a new high, then we might expect that we've got double bearish divergence between price and RSI. I'd put that in then if a nice pivot develops in price. And that would be rather bearish, but the peaks are quite a long way apart. I really would rather look at that divergence at the weekly time frame, not the daily. When the peaks are too far apart at your time frame, it doesn't tend to be as reliable as when you've got peaks close together like here or even here. There would also be bearish divergence between price and money flow between these two peaks if the current high in price develops as a pivot with another downward session, or maybe sideways to be an obvious pivot. But money flow didn't reach overbought. It's only single divergence, and the peaks are just too far apart for really good reliability here. Again, like Bitcoin, for Ethereum, I am going to give a lot of weight to that strong increase in volume. The strongest we've seen for months on a strong upward session comes with an increase in volatility. This is a very common feature. Well, no, it always happens when Ethereum is in a strong bullish run. It can happen in parts of bear market rallies, but it'll always happen in a bullish run. So along with my Elliott Wave count, which has a really nice fit, I'm still pretty bullish on Ethereum. I don't think we're looking for a bigger pullback here. Let's update my Elliott Wave count for the short term with you with XRP. This isn't working because 4 would be in what's wave 1 price territory, so I have to move that up, and I would put some labels on here. I would label this a series of 1, 2, 3 overlapping first and second waves. So winding up for a little bit of an increase in momentum for the middle of a third wave. If this labeling is correct, this assumes that minor wave 2 is complete here as a single zigzag. Now the problem here is an alternate idea would move the degree of labeling within minor 2 down 1 degree and label this minute wave W of a double zigzag. Would have W, X, and then Y could move lower. Double zigzags, the second zigzag in the double, has a purpose to deepen the correction when the first zigzag doesn't move price deep enough, so that idea would expect more downward movement. I could also label it a combination, W, X, Y. Combinations and double zigzags are labelled the same, but they're really different structures. The zigzag family has a sharp counter trend slope. They are sharp bounces and pullbacks, whereas combinations belong to the sideways family. They are consolidation kind of corrections. So Y, if there is one, would be expected to end about the same level as W, so that the whole structure took up time and moved price sideways. So I cannot eliminate that possibility. I have to allow that minor 2 could continue, and if it does, it may not move beyond the start of 1 below 0.4456. I'm not prepared to eliminate that possibility until minor wave 3 has met the core Elliott Wave rule of moving beyond the end of 1. And as soon as price makes a new high above the end of minor 1, at 0.7473, I move the invalidation point up here to the end of minor 2, and at that point I'll be prepared to calculate a target for minor wave 3 for you. I'm not prepared to do that until I have really decent confidence that it's actually begun. The target for intermediate 3 remains the same at 9.57 to reach 14.71, the length of intermediate wave 1. At the daily time frame, XRP is still finding really strong support at 55 cents, resistance now at 58 cents as prices closed below that for the 12th of January. This is getting weaker though, so it was strong resistance back here, 58 cents, but it's been weakened every time it's been broken. It gets weaker, so I might remove that resistance and support line at 58 cents and just use 0.675 and 0.55. The downward session for XRP lacks a push from volume. Price is falling of its own weight. That's a shorthand way of saying price can fall due to a lack of interest from buyers just as easily as it can due to increased activity from sellers. When you have a lack of interest from buyers, price can fall on light and declining volume. But when you have increased activity from sellers, it will push price lower with an increase in volume. Price can fall of its own weight really hard and fast, quite a considerable distance. If you doubt what I mean, just spend a little bit of time looking at charts with volume. Look at big bearish movements and you'll notice quite often in all markets you'll see big downward movements on light and declining volume. Now the reverse is not true. According to the textbooks, in order for price to continue rising, it needs to have an increased activity from buyers to be sustainable. Now, there is an exception to that rule, and I'm just gonna throw it out there. There's a chart that I look at every day for a particular market. Go back to 2009 to the current and have a look at that big market and tell me which one is it that's rising on lighter and declining volume, and it's been doing it for over 14 years. And I'm really interested in discussing the seriously bad implications of that. Just let me know, which market do you think I'm talking about? Does anyone know? Has anyone else noticed that? I've never seen anyone else point this out. What market am I talking about, guys? ADX again has the slightest upward slope. So again, a downward trend is indicated for XRP. Not in an early stage, but still nowhere near extreme. A long way to go if there is this downward trend in place. RSI is neutral. Money flow is neutral. If there is a downward trend, there's a long way to go before conditions reach extreme and oversold. That's it from me at the end of the week for you, and I hope everyone is looking forward to a good holiday weekend with MLK Day on Monday.